Are you doing this?
This feels very
All
official.
right. Oh, man. Promise me, Dana, you'll do that now forever. Well, hey, welcome to Two Perfect Pastors podcast. We're so glad you're here. I'm here with my good friend and fellow pastor, Danny DeMores, who is the pastor at Kissimmee.
Yes, First Pres Kissimmee. Been around a long time. Hopefully around for a much longer time.
And my name is Craig Sumi, and I am the pastor at Oakland Presbyterian Church. We're both Presbyterian pastors in Florida, but I think we feel like we can speak for anybody of any denominations. Yeah,
Whether
I mean, it's part of our perfection is that we can reach into anybody's experience. So we're for all pastors.
Beauty of freedom of speech. We could say whatever we want.
We're for all pastors, not just Presbyterian pastors, and any Presbyterian people too out there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's your week going?
Good, but something just occurred to me. Do you, by chance, off the top of your head, do you know when Oakland was founded? Oakland Pres?
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Every pastor should know when their church was founded.
So
even if it was only like 4 years ago.
Kissimmee was 1884, and the sanctuary was
Yep.
built in 1886.
Yeah. So we were founded in 1887, and we already had a church building. Actually, when the church was
I think our
organized.
two churches might be two of the oldest in the presbytery.
I would have no idea about that.
I
I
think
just
it is.
know what
It's just
ours
like
is.
I just realized because I
Yeah.
know this was one of the older ones, but
Yeah, 1887.
there you go.
Yep, that's pretty darn old. That's older than me.
Yeah, 100 years older than me.
See, why'd you have to do that? Why did you have to do that? Okay, so how's your week going?
This is a Christmas week, so it is very, very busy because there's all the church stuff going on, and then there's all the family stuff going on, and the gift giving and gift wrapping, and just all the things before the end of the year, making sure everything's in order and everything's good to go. And then also happens to be a really busy time for my wife's work, so it's just been
Oh, is it? Yeah, I
yeah.
bet it
So it's
is,
just
yeah.
been like really busy. What about yourself?
Oh, we just had our family Christmas, so everything feels anticlimactic after this because we had our big blowout.
You had your big thing already.
Because we wanted to avoid, like the plague, all the travel problems that our daughter had last year getting from Denver to Orlando. They lost her luggage. A flight got canceled in there. She had to wait until the next day, and then they lost her luggage. And then just the crowds are just so intense at that airport. And
MCO is insane for
Yep.
the holidays.
Yep. So we just said, not again. We're never doing that again. So we had her out. We just put her on a plane yesterday, and so she was here for a week. And so, yeah, it was Friday and Saturday. We had New Year's, kind of a New Year's Eve sort of thing. We went to Disney and to Epcot and had a nice family day. My son's fiance joined in. She's great. We love spending time with her. And then all the kids spent the night
Yeah,
at our house.
that's cool.
Just like in the old days. So we woke up and all the kids are there. We're not waiting for them to drive over or come on
Yeah.
a plane. They were just all there, and we got to have kind of like the Christmas we used to have when they were much, much younger. And it was sweet. I mean, I just reveled in it the whole day long. And then I got a cold. I was like out for 2 days.
That's what happens when you're around a bunch of kids
I guess so.
on all their germs.
These are like 20-something-year-old kids. They can't be that contagious.
Really?
I got it from somebody.
Yeah. I am doing the opposite. We are traveling Christmas night. So we obviously a bunch of church
Yeah.
services on Christmas Eve because it's a Sunday this year. And then Christmas Day, we're doing time with family. We're traveling Christmas night. But I like traveling the budget airlines, not only because I don't like spending a lot of money,
Yeah.
but because we're flying Allegiant. And one of the things with Allegiant's like, oh, but if you want to take a carry-on, you have to pay extra for
Oh,
it
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
right? And I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
great, we're not going to pay that. We're just going to take backpacks. We're only there for a couple days. You
Oh,
travel
so
with a
everything's in
backpack.
the backpack.
Everything's in a backpack. So each of us gets a backpack, including the kids, which I love because it's like, hey, can I bring 17 stuffed animals? Does it fit in your backpack? No. Sorry, can't take it.
Ah,
But yeah.
It's a teaching moment.
Can I take these 4 blankets? No. I don't think it's going to fit in your backpack. So as a parent, it's lovely to be like,
This is genius. Why didn't we think of that?
it's like, oh, sorry, your clothes have to go in, and then yeah, you can get one stuffed animal in there, but then you're probably
there is a small problem,
Probably capped.
There is a small problem.
What's the problem?
Well, you're going somewhere.
Because you're not going to lose your luggage.
No. I get that.
Yeah,
but
I
you're
love it.
going somewhere.
Yep.
It's Christmas time.
Yeah.
You have kids.
Sure.
They're going to get gifts. How do they bring them back?
If it doesn't fit in the backpack.
Oh, my gosh. It includes the Christmas gifts as well.
Well, they're getting their gifts at home. A lot of them will stay at home if they want to bring something with them.
Yeah, but
they
the
can.
ones they get from friends
From
and family.
oh, no, like we'll have to ship it, or or it doesn't happen.
Okay.
It is.
Something tells me they didn't think this one through.
No, we've traveled like this before. You have no idea how much I love. So I have my I don't know if you know this. When I was born, I was baptized in a Catholic church. So
I think you told me that.
So I have a godmother. So we went to New York to visit my godmother,
Uh-huh.
who's a little older, and so we had to go on buses with the kids and walk through Manhattan and do all these things.
Yeah.
And so they each had their backpacks, and
Yep.
it made it so much easier to get on and off the plane.
Oh, yeah.
No waiting for
Oh,
luggage.
no, I get that.
No
totally.
pulling. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It's the only way I want to travel now. Only a backpack.
But, I mean, you can't fit. I'm sorry. I'm very troubled by this notion because we don't act like this at all. We bring all the luggage we possibly can. And we always fly Southwest, so we can do that. So you can bring like one pair of clothes, 2 pairs of clothes. How does that work? Do you just wear the same jeans all the way through, or what do you do?
So there are a couple tricks. One is that
you
have to,
very few wardrobe choices when you have one backpack.
You could fit more in a backpack than you think. Like if you roll up jeans,
Yeah.
like you could fit a couple pairs in there, or like I've taken dress pants before, just like what wrinkles and what doesn't, or what can you hang up, and so we pack smart, and you could bring like 3 outfits in addition to what you're wearing. The trick is shoes.
Yeah.
So like you have to wear like the shoes. Like so on this trip we're gonna do some hiking. So we're all wearing hiking shoes on the plane, and the hiking shoes is what we're wearing the whole time. Because if you need to bring 2 or 3 pairs of shoes, that'll kill all your.
Yeah, that kills your space.
Yeah, but
All right.
clothes is pretty easy.
Okay. Huh.
For a 2 or 3 day
All right.
trip, it's
a little
possible.
tip for young families out there.
Yeah,
Thanks to Danny.
be cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, it's the holidays. It's Christmas, and Christmas tends to be a big time for us pastors.
It does.
There's a lot of activity going on at the church. Sometimes some of us have multiple services that are going on Christmas Eve. Some people have them on Christmas Day. We're not doing Christmas Day. Are you doing Christmas Day?
We're not doing Christmas Day because
Yeah.
you always do Christmas. Last year we did a Christmas Day because Christmas Eve was Saturday.
Yeah.
And Christmas
So that-
Day
yeah,
was
we had to
Sunday.
do that too.
So we did the
Yeah.
Sunday morning service.
We had to do that
which,
too, and I was
we
not
made
happy.
it a pajama day.
Yeah. 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 No.
We're doing the same thing with 10 a.m. Kissimmee. If you want to show up, you could wear your ugly Christmas sweater
This is a tradition.
or pajamas. And if you sing with the kids after the service, you get to throw a water balloon at me.
Hey, I think I'll come. That sounds really good. Yeah. So busy time, and it's a time when some weirdness comes out in a church and in congregation people. So
Tell us more.
yeah. Well, no, I want you to tell me because we're going to have our first segment is going to be the holy complaining segment. Holy complaining. And so I want to know, what are 2 or 3 things that just annoy you about being a pastor during the Christmas, Advent, Christmas, New Year's time?
So this is one that used to bother me more, but now I've gotten better at it. Christmas used to be my favorite time of the year. Like it really was.
It used to
It
be.
used to be.
Oh, something happened.
Work. Now it's just like there's so much to do that I don't really get to enjoy it. If I try to do both, where I try to enjoy the season and do my job, like it ends up like it's just too convoluted, too messy, it's too busy. So I've gotten to the point where I kind of celebrate the Christmas season after Christmas because like things slow down. I get some time for the family. I get some time for myself, and so I try to like celebrate the spirit of Christmas after the fact because I find it's hard to. There are seasons like I feel the same way about Lent, right, and Easter and Holy Week.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to find my Sabbath time, that time for myself, and that time for me to like make a sacred time when I'm this busy.
Okay.
Like there's just like my brain's is doing too many things.
Oh,
Like, so
okay.
I can't slow down.
Bandwidth problem.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. We've just always mashed everything together and come out of it exhausted.
Yeah,
But
that's
we've gotten good at it.
I'm great at being burnt out.
We've gotten good at it. You set some boundaries. I mean, one of the nice things. This is not a complaining thing. This is actually very thankful for this. I don't know about your church, but this church, I mean, all the businessy stuff almost completely shuts down in favor of all of the the kids
Extra events
stuff
going
and
on.
the social stuff and and the worship services. Everybody's kind of in a whole different mode. They've got their schedules are packed. Most committees decide, hey, we're not going to meet.
'Cause everybody's too
Our
busy.
session meets, but it's in between Christmas and Easter, and that's actually kind of nice. That's not what I'm complaining about.
What are you complaining about?
I'm complaining. This is one of the things that really annoys me. It is when you go to, usually it's the Christmas Eve service. It's the evening one,
Okay, like the candlelight service or whatever.
like a candlelight service or whatever, because that's the one that tends to have those that are kind of marginal in your congregation. We call them CEOs or Christmas and
Christmas, Easter
Easter
only.
only
Yep.
types. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love them. I go out of my way to be welcoming and to express how glad I am to see them, and try to remember as much as I can about what they said last time was going on in their life, and to ask them about it. What makes me upset, what irritates me and annoys me, is when you got somebody who is a CEO and all they can do is look sheepish and guilty.
Oh, like
And then they avoid you. They don't even want to talk to you. It's like they feel so guilty about the fact that they haven't been there since Easter, that they won't even engage you. They're kind of slinking around and trying to. And I'm just like, dude, lighten up. Come and talk to me. I'm not going to bite you. I'm not going to make you. I'm not going to point out.
yeah.
That you're only coming on Christmas and Easter and make you feel bad about that. I am going to say, hey, I miss you. I'd like to see you more often, but I'm not going to make them feel bad. But they assume, they're kind of slinking back into church. And you should never slink into a church. You should feel like the grace of God is always welcoming you, no matter what your backstory
I wonder,
is.
like, if part of that is them and part of that is their history with the church, right? I had somebody tell me beforehand, it's like, oh, I grew up in a church where, like, you didn't talk to pastor or whoever. Like, they weren't approachable. Like, they were, like, you didn't bother them. You came to church, you sat still, and then you left. Like, they weren't available in the context that they found themselves. So that's a very interesting thing.
No, yeah, and most of the people I'm thinking of, I don't think that's really the case. Yeah. What's another one? What's another thing that kind of irks you?
One that used to, but no longer, is candlelight service. Having to clean up the wax afterwards from the candles. However, that is no longer a complaint of mine, because I told you how old First Pres Kissimmee is.
Yeah.
And we are in our original sanctuary
Yeah.
from 1886.
Yeah.
Which means that wood has been drying for 135 years.
So you can use this as an argument.
The insurance company does not let us have live candles.
Oh, in
in the
way, shape, or
sanctuary.
form.
No. We could only have, like, the battery-powered ones.
Okay.
Which means no wax. But, like, the insurance company's like, no, you cannot have live flames in your tinderbox of a building.
I totally get that, but are people kind of, they get their little pen light or whatever, and are they kind of like,
No, I mean, they look like candles that even flickers and everything. They get it.
Oh, okay. All right, so
that's a thing ever since before I was there, so it's just kind of the part of the narrative.
I don't know, though. There was always, when I grew up in the church, and my church had 3 candlelight services every Christmas Eve, and the candle was kind of a danger. I mean, it was like, you're a little kid and you have this candle, it's lit, and you're not supposed to play with fire, but you're getting to hold this candle.
And you want to play with fire.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, I can hardly control myself. I'm carrying fire. And there's just, you don't get that as much with an electric light. But
Nope.
You don't want to see, your church become a bonfire.
Correct. Light of the world.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, I got one too.
Okay.
I got another one too. Really, really old and really, really ugly church Christmas decorations that should have been thrown out decades ago, but they keep getting repacked and they keep getting brought out every year, and they show up somewhere, and you're just kind of going, really? Are we throwing this stuff up again?
So how do you deal with that? What's the hill you
it's
choose
not
to...
easy. I mean, it depends on church to church, because sometimes those things are sacred, and people will notice if they're not there. So you got some splaining to do. So I have an experience with this in the church I served in previously. When I got there, was right before Christmas, And so the decorations were up, and I remember walking into the sanctuary and just going, "Oh my gosh!" It was the
Oof.
gaudiest thing I've ever seen in my life. And the thing that Lynn and I remember the most is that somebody had made these angels, and so there's a bunch of stained glass windows, and so in the archway of the stained glass windows there were these angels, but the angels were made to look like, I mean, there were these craft items. They were handmade, and they were made like with pantyhose or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they looked like they had fangs. I mean, it was something about. We called them the children of the corn.
they
I
were
mean, they were
terrifying.
they were terrifying. We were looking at those. Like, who doesn't think that these are crazy looking? And so they did not go up the next year. And yeah, I got an earful about why we weren't using all those great decorations. I said, let's just keep it simple. Let's just
So you
do
didn't
some
attack
bright
the decorations
lights,
directly, you
and
just-
we were kind of remodeling the
Did you almost say
sanctuary.
cemetery?
So, no, seminary, sanctuary. I almost said seminary, which is even worse. No, sanctuary, yeah. So that was one of my experiences with it. But this church is pretty good. This church doesn't have a whole lot of that stuff. Most of the decorations are just nice. They're tasteful. Like, for instance, our beautiful poinsettia tree. These are real poinsettias, and they're gorgeous. So this is nice. This is tasteful, especially if you're kind of back in the room a little bit. Yeah.
Who's in charge of watering your poinsettias?
I have no
You
idea.
don't know.
Yeah.
At Kissimmee,
I make a point of not knowing these details.
I water the poinsettias at Kissimmee, partially because my first year there we had poinsettias, and then 3 different people decided that they were going to water it. And we didn't have openings in the
I've
bottom.
had that before.
So we drowned most of the poinsettias.
Yes,
and
they're all
started
dead
dying.
by
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. I've had that happen. Everybody's
No
taking
more.
ownership of the poinsettias.
So that was a good one.
Got another one?
Similar thing. For Florida's interesting because you get a lot of people who travel to Florida or move to Florida, so you get a lot of people, and sometimes you get people who pointedly come up to you and be like, "Hey, you know what we used to do at my old church?" And then they have this brilliant idea, and you're like, "That sounds beautiful." And then you just let the conversation end there. Like, thank you for sharing that story.
You don't do
with
the
me.
old trick of, hey, and you could be the planning person. You could lead the planning
if
team.
it's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
Then yes.
Otherwise, you just let it die. So that's kind of your vetting right there. Is you decide right at that moment if it goes another.
Do I
step
decide
further.
they're telling me a story that they just wanted to share with me?
Yeah.
In which case, thank you for telling me that story.
Yeah.
Or is this something worth pursuing, and then they should definitely pursue it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes some great ideas come out of those.
Oh, for sure.
Conversations.
And sometimes it's things that just like aren't. That one person would get something out of it, and I understand that. But the other people would have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. That's kind of what we did with those Christmas decorations. Is someone's like, we can't do these. We can't do the Children of the Corn again. So we basically said, okay, your small group is in charge. So they actually took more of the heat than I did. It wasn't my intention, but but it worked out nicely. And and they were fine with it. They knew it was coming, and they were just like, well, we were put in charge this year, and yeah. And I guess that was the breaking point. They wanted to complain about the decorations not being there, but they really, really didn't want to be back in charge again like they were before. So they kind of accepted it.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, so anyway, Danny, our main topic is there's some Pew study research that you like that stuff. Yeah, I know you do. So do I. Basically the article I found was most Americans are spiritual, but a growing number say they are not religious. So they're saying they're spiritual, but not religious. This is a distinct group of Americans who call themselves spiritual, not religious, and they make up 22% of
Which
the
is a
population,
pretty
according
decent,
to this study.
Pretty decent amount.
Yep. They only 20% of the spiritual but not religious, though, believe in God or in the Bible. They're much less likely than religious Americans to say they believe in heaven as well. They may still affiliate with a religion. So if somebody asks them, what's your denomination or what's your religious affiliation, they may say Jewish or
Or
Christian
Christian
or
or
whatever.
something.
But 45% of the spiritual not religious will say they are religiously affiliated, but only 1/5 will identify as Protestant and only 12% as Catholic, and they tend to always have negative views of organized religion. 38% say religion does more harm than good of this group of people. But as the study also found, the group has largely not replaced congregational belonging with some other form of spiritual gathering. So basically what they're saying is, this is a growing segment of people who don't want to give up the spirituality part of it.
Yep.
They just want to give up the having to go to church.
Yeah, they don't want to go to church anymore.
Yeah, and be a part of a denomination or a congregation or whatever.
Some organized group where they're told where to be and what to do and all those things.
Yep, some of them have some very distinct reasons for doing that. It's not because it's because they're kind of dissatisfied or they've been burned by the religious experience. However, what's happening, and this is what I'd like to hear a little bit more from you about, what's happening is that they're not finding community in this new reality that they're creating. This new spirituality that they're creating is basically for their own personal consumption or maybe confined to a family, but it's not actually connecting them with other people who may have either a similar sort of approach to spirituality or are seekers. They're not finding that community. And it seems to me that that's a crucial component of the whole church experience, is finding that community and having that sense of union that centers on these religious ideals. I mean, for us in this church, it's it's Jesus Christ, and it's the mission that He had and has and will continue to have, and aligning ourselves with that. And in order to do that well, we need to be, encouraging and building each other up. We need to be growing, and we need to learning and maturing. But it's also that we can connect more deeply and intimately with Christ, and then it be about His mission in the world. So that's something that binds us together. Even though we all have different political views, and some of us have different church experiences, that kind of forms a glue, and that can get you through a lot of struggles that groups sometimes have if you kind of keep your eye on the ball. That these folks are just saying, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it seems like to me, where it's like, I don't like that form of community, so my response is to not have any form of community.
And the way I understood the article was like, I'm not going to have any form of like spiritual community. My spiritual thing is personal to me, but I will find community with my softball league, with my whatever, right? Like whatever social club I'm a part of, or with the guys at work, or whatever the case may be. So people are finding pockets of community in other places for the socialization aspect, to having people to bounce ideas off of or to vent to, but they're not doing it for spiritual and religious reasons.
Well, maybe backing up a little bit. Why do you think people are saying that? I mean, if you heard anybody say, I'm spiritual, I'm just not religious.
Yeah, I feel like
what are they saying there?
So have you had a number of people tell you that? Because I have a number of people tell me that in my interactions outside of the church.
Oh, well,
because I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I grew up in the church, but now I'm more spiritual but not really religious. I don't know if I like organized religion kind of thing. So I've had a number of people tell me that. Do you find that's true for you as well, or not quite as much?
Oh, it's people inside the church. No, I'm just kidding. Although I wonder, they can see, what the issues are, but and the problems of being the church, and sometimes they get burned out on it. But no, it's all from having conversations with people who are either not attending or they're kind of on the way out. They're sort of nominal, marginal Christians. Kind of joining that wave of folks that now are just saying, I'm not affiliated with anything, but I'm still spiritual. And I'm just kind of going, I mean, my question I want to ask them, and rarely do, because it's usually in a setting where, we can't really dig
Yeah,
deep
it's
in
public setting. People
Yeah.
are hanging around.
it.
It just
Yeah,
kinda came
I
up.
need to learn to kind of follow up because I am
Yeah.
curious. What do you mean by spiritual? Do you have any insight on that? What do they mean by spiritual?
So, and so
I mean,
my
they say
insight-
it's not Bible, it's not
here's-
God, it's
my
yeah.
statement's going to be convoluted, so I apologize. But I find that like you can't put a blanket statement on what that means to somebody because it means different things for different people. Because I've met people who are Christian but have been burnt by the church or disagree with some of the things with the church, or they became more political than they did religious per se, and so they don't agree with some of the things the church does. So they believe in God and they believe in the Bible, but they don't like that particular group or don't want to be affiliated with that group.
Yeah.
And then there's the people who are partially, they're just not sure, right? Like they believe that there's something out there. They're just not sure what it is. Almost a little bit agnostic, in that kind of like thing. And then the third group of people that I found, if I could put them in three categories, are people who are borderline universalists, right? Want to take a little bit of like different things, and they started reading different things, and like, oh, I like this from Buddha, and I like this from wherever, and tie it in with some of the Christianity and like golden rule. Like, I think there's karma in the world. I believe that there's going to be something. I believe, right? But they don't exactly know what it is, and sometimes trying to be a good person more so than anything else. So it's different for different people. It really kind of, I don't think there's one blanket answer. I think that idea of being spiritual but not religious becomes a very easy statement for, I don't know, I just don't want to do that right now. Mm-hmm. Right? For a multitude of reasons, it's just the easy thing to say. Mm-hmm. Just like it becomes a platitude.
I haven't got a better reason, but
correct. I kind of fell away from it.
Yeah.
Because here's something interesting. If you find somebody who is stopped believing, who's walked away from the faith, right?
Yeah.
Usually they're a little more assertive, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I don't believe in that anymore. I used to believe, but I don't believe anymore." But the people who say, "I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious," it's almost a little bit more of an awkward conversation. Like they're like,
So basically, you're saying they're wishy-washy. They're wishy-washy. They don't actually. They're not either. They're not spiritual or religious.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people.
But spiritual becomes a placeholder for not being religious.
Yes, exactly. Essentially, so the people who've said that more, I realized, grew up in some sort of religion.
Yeah.
And have either through college or life, it fell by the wayside. And then never reintegrated into part of their lives again. So they haven't necessarily said, I'm done with this completely. But it's not really a part of their lives anymore. Mm-hmm. Like it's just kind of there. It's that random like. So when me and my wife, we lived in St. Pete for 3 years, and then we moved here to Winter Garden. And there were boxes in our garage that in the 3 years we lived in St. Pete, we did not open those boxes. And I said, do we need these? If we didn't need them in 3 years, do we need them now? What did my wife answer? What's your guess?
We're going to need them someday.
Yeah, right? Like, yes, yeah. I want those boxes. Okay, great.
Yeah.
They're sitting in my garage now, 6 years later, some of them unopened, right? So it's that thing that's a part of your life, but not really. Yeah. Right? Like, oh yeah, I have a memory attached to that. I have an association with it. There's a romanticized history there, but it's not really actively a part of my life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. But I think I'm more troubled by what the study is saying about how people are exiting out of any meaningful community based around spiritual things.
Based around spiritual things, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's probably going to be a host of reasons why people come into the camp of I'm spiritual but not religious. I mean, Danny, I know people that are very mature Christians, have intimate knowledge and relationship with God, know their Bible through and through, praying every day, and they don't go to church. I mean, they're outliers. It's not like there's a bunch, but I've definitely met them, and they're just like, going to church is just too much of a spiritual drag.
Why? Why do you think that is? Because that becomes a more interesting group to me. more so than the people who just kind of fell away, but like the people who
they'll
are
give reasons like it's hypocritical, it's always missing the point. They're not enough engaged in mission. They're more just doing stuff for themselves, and so a whole host of reasons. But I kind of wonder if it's the same thing. It's just that connection with people is complicated and it's messy, and it just seems like an easier solution to just not to factor that out of my life. But like we're Christians, so
Yeah.
we really can only answer this from a Christian point of view. But what gets lost when you're a Christian or you're spiritual or whatever, but you don't have any community to gather around, sort of fleshing that out?
So, for me, I have a different perspective on this. My mom is one of 14. My dad's one of 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I have more cousins than I can count. Like I can't name all my cousins, but they're all in Brazil. My dad was a master chef for Hilton. He got his sponsored for a green card through them. Married my mom, came to the States. Me and my siblings were born here. So first generation American. None of my family is here. So for me, the church became my family. And so when my parents were working in a restaurant and working 7 days a week, the church was giving me rides to places. They were supporting me at school. They were doing things. And that's not to say my parents weren't there. My parents were working hard to put food on the table, right? But the church stepped in and they were my family. So for me, I very much see the church as that place of support. When I have questions, where do I go? I go to the church. When I have doubts, when I have fears, when I have struggles, when life is just too difficult. Like I don't know about you, but like I can't do life on my own. It's too much to carry. And for me, the church is where you get some of that, and that helps you with your faith as well.
But it seems to me that's exactly what people are really wanting to do as an alternative to the messy aspects of being in community with other people. I would say, not wanting to be accountable, not wanting to have to compare yourself with other people of faith, whatever that faith may be, or people of spirituality, So, yeah, it just seems like, that there's nothing to measure against. People are wanting to have this customized experience that they are sort of the arbiter. They are the one that is in charge of managing what their spirituality is.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that what society is leaning to a lot, though?
That's exactly.
Like
Yeah,
society,
it seems that way to me.
Society as a whole, it's like, what do you want? Let's give you a customized experience. I have a friend who's working in advertising, and he was talking about I bet you, Travis, you're behind the camera. But if I said Empire today, do you know the flooring company, right?
Oh yeah.
800-588.
Yeah. Is that guy still alive?
Empire. I don't know, but I knew
that's
that
what I'm worried
commercial.
about. I don't think he's even alive
I
anymore.
had that commercial memorized. The jingle was just in my head.
Oh,
I memorized their number.
Empire today.
Yes, correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are certain things like Stanley Steamer. I don't know why it's all flooring companies that are stuck in my head right now.
I know, this is kind of interesting.
But the point is that we used to have these joint, and sometimes you'd even go to school or work the next day and oh, did you see whatever ad during? And now, what ads do you see? Nobody watches TV.
Nobody was watching the same ads anymore.
Nobody watches the same ads anymore. Ads are all customized, right? If you're like the ads that you see on your social media accounts are customized to you into things that you've recently searched, or because your phone's listening to you, things that you said out loud near your phone by accident, right? So you get customized ads because Big Brother's watching and customizing all these things for you. And so you're getting a unique experience in what is showing up in your social media content, what is showing up in your ads, what everything is super personalized. And so even in that, we don't get a community experience anymore. We don't talk about those things anymore. We don't have as much to have in common anymore. And I guess people are bleeding that into their spiritual lives.
Because if you're in community with other people, then one of the things that people consider messy is the fact that you have to have some standards. Yeah. Otherwise, it's chaos.
Correct, social standards.
And people don't tend to want to congregate around chaos. They want to congregate around some organizing, principles. I know some people may like chaos, but I don't.
But even that chaos then needs to be it's accepted that all the people here want a form of chaos.
Exactly.
Which is like,
yes,
right?
it's true.
Like,
because that person that comes in, hey, we need to start a committee so that we can make sure that there's lemonade
it's
every
like, no,
Thursday
that's
night.
not what we do here, right? like we've all decided.
If lemonade's gonna come, it's gonna come.
Correct. Yeah. So that personalized experience, but who is that built around? It's built around the individual, right?
Yeah.
And I think even as pastors, sometimes I've had this conversation before, where it seems like sometimes we try to sell scripture, like what's it going to do for you, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like when you're going to go buy a car, it's like, oh, you want that new car smell? This car is going to take you wherever you want to go. It can go from 0 to 60 to whatever. Here's everything it's going to do for you, right? And all the ads and all the things that we experience in life, it's like, what is it going to do for you? We're in Christianity, I guess specifically, if you just look at it of what's God going to do for you, then you're only getting part of the picture. And then you do want that personalized thing. This is the Santa Claus God that I want. But there's an aspect of Christianity that expects accountability. Not just to a governing church body, but to an all-powerful God, right? A God who loves you and cares for you, but also wants you to be a beacon in the world and to live for more than just yourself, which is very counter to what the world kind of tells you. Would you agree?
I totally would agree, but now I'm kind of wondering, well, what now? I mean, should I, as a pastor or my church, or even, networks of churches that kind of gather around this question, to be able to say, okay, so people are saying they want more spirituality than they want religion, but we know that while that may be a worthy pursuit, there's no community that's coming with that, so that there's no checks and balances. Where spirituality could really go down a dark path. It could be very dangerous for people. It could be dangerous for their relationships.
Can veer off scripture quite a bit.
It can veer off just common sense.
Can be
quite
abused very easily.
Yeah, I mean, we all have seen, news of some guy that, goes into a restaurant and shoots it up and says God told him to do that.
Yeah.
Well, then he's a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the kind of spirituality we want people to have, antisocial spirituality. So I'm wondering if the church can start to have outreach that's more geared towards people who say they're spiritual but not religious.
And how do you do that?
How do you, making connections? Mm-hmm. I think primarily what you're trying to do is get them together.
Build relationships.
Well, and get people that think that way together.
Oh, interesting. Like
yeah.
Get like-minded people to
forming community around
what?
Wanting to be more spiritual.
So
and then you can explore some different practices. You can explore some different. You can basically use it as a chance to educate. Okay, you say you want to be spiritual. Well, this is what through the ages spirituality has looked like. So and it's frankly it's a smorgasbord. Mm-hmm. Always has been because it is so deeply personal.
Correct.
So you do get a chance to kind of, say, well, I like this practice or I like this practice or this kind of, mindset that I bring into, say meditation or contemplation, but, have it be something that is bringing people together, one, and two is through that interaction, giving them some tools for how to create some standards.
Correct. And I think there's
that can then help people that are coming into the church, into this group, to integrate a little bit faster.
And I think
kind of get with the program.
I think maybe even making it clear and giving them permission to express how they want to grow in their spirituality and which eventually going to become religion, right? Like the two kind of go hand in hand. You can't really separate.
They're going to wake up one day and say, "Wait a minute, I'm religious. Dang it, they tricked me."
Yeah, there's just one of those things, right? But how do you want to express that? Like we talked about like traditions in a church and whatnot, right? Like the decorations that are always there.
Yeah.
The way we worship, the way we do things. The church is very easy to get legalistic.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, well, yeah.
And so you get legalistic and you get tied down to different traditions and ways that you worship. I had a phone call the other day. I was talking to somebody who was interested in visiting the church, and they're like, hey, if I visit your church, I don't know when to stand up and when to sit down, and I'm worried about how people are going to look at me and whatnot. And it was interesting because, like, I'd like to think that at first part of Gethsemane, like, that wouldn't be the case, right? But I've been to churches like that, right? Or I've been to churches where my kid's making noise and people give me dirty looks.
You're not standing up. Why aren't you standing up?
Or why is your kid being loud, right? It's like they're 2 and they're hungry, right? Like because you didn't install changing tables in this building, so I have to walk 3 buildings over to change my kid. So I don't think people feel like they have permission to go into a place and express themselves.
Yeah.
They can either adopt what is already there or reject it. And I think partially what you're saying is giving like-minded people a space where they can create something new that more represents them. Is that partially what you're saying?
I think so. And I if there's anybody, I don't know if there's any pastors that listen to this. I think there are. I mean, people tell me they do.
Why wouldn't they?
But I would love to hear some thinking about, okay, let's do targeted sort of connection and outreach with people who say they are spiritual but not religious. Because we could say, well, spiritual's in our wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. We can help with that and probably make some promises. We're not going to make you join a church. We're not going to make you do this, that, and the other thing. But we do insist on community because it's in community that we grow the best.
Correct. Yeah, to support each other, to be there for each other, to
right
talk to each other.
And so the church, may even not even be like a ministry of the church, but it's something that the church is resourcing, praying for. That's a huge one. It's just pray for the people who start to come together in community, not have ulterior motives like, well, we'll make Christians out of it. We know, wink, 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 wink. They'll become Christians after they not have that sort of agenda. Letting God be in charge of all of that.
But if you were leading this group, would it be Christian, or are you talking about incorporating?
If I was the leader, then I would be guided by my faith because I would say my faith is so integrated with who I am. I can't just like separate it out. It's like tearing out my heart. Mm-hmm. That I can't compartmentalize my faith. So, just as long as you're clear, but I'm not going to push it on you, and my agenda is we're going to explore spirituality broadly.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, right? And interesting conversations. And I think that you could get different people on that. Like I said, spirituality, like people who say they're not religious but spiritual, is such a broad group of people that I think you can find people who are spiritually Christian that
oh, there's a bunch of people that are just like, oh, I like that, and they're church attenders.
Who are quote-unquote Christian, but don't like church for whatever reason. Maybe they were burnt. Maybe they got tired of COVID. Maybe COVID gave them the reason to do church from home or stop coming, and they never got involved again because they were never really connected. So I think even like specifically like a Christian spiritual group where it's like, how do you want to express that, right? Like even like just like nailing it down some more, just like not even super broad. Like what is spirituality? What is religion? What is the afterlife? But people who even like grew up Christian be like, how do you want to celebrate that? How do you want to build community?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the goal, my goal would be just that if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you know what, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual, I'm going to be able to say, I got a group for you. Mm-hmm. I'd love to be able to do that.
That's interesting.
I got a group for you. Well, final words. We're going into a new year, Danny. I have a final word. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, please do.
Hey, we want to just say big thank you to our producer, Travis Nornhold, who is moving to Seattle. He's going after
faraway land.
He's going after a girl, and he's going after his education. You've actually started your schooling online, school out there, and we're just so happy for him. We're so happy about him taking this next step in his life. And actually behind the scenes, his replacement, Dana, is kind of learning the ropes. I think he already knows the ropes, but he's getting reacquainted with them, and he's going to be our producer. So we're still going to try to produce some Two Perfect Pastors going into 2024.
There you go. Travis, best of luck in all your future journeys. We expect that you will continue to download and watch, even though you're not producing anymore.
Yeah, you better.
You can still consume the content.
Yeah, you better.
Our audience is growing now.
Yeah. Spread the word in Seattle. We might get some, West Coasters. Well, hey, make sure that you subscribe. We're on Spotify, Apple, and pretty much anywhere where you can find podcasts. You can also view them on YouTube. And just click in Two Perfect Pastors, and you'll get right there because there's nobody else that's calling themselves Two Perfect Pastors. We have exclusive rights to this thing, at least so far. And and we just hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. God bless.